Okay, so for those of you who have a Mac and need to do a histogram, the easiest way is as follows. So let's say we have the audit times, and these are just basically 20 different audit times. And what we need to do is we need to sort those. So I copied the column into here, and what I'm going to do is basically just sort smallest to largest, and I'll continue with the current selection. And so now I have the original data sorted from smallest to largest. Then what we need to do is we need to find classes, because what we're going to do is we're going to make a frequency table. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is find the width. And the width basically is you take the largest value minus the smallest value divided by the number of classes. So our smallest value is 12, our largest value is 33, one reason for sorting. And so then the next thing we need to do is we need to think about how many classes we're going to do. So usually it's between 5 and 20, and that's the number of classes it is for a typical frequency diagram. Since this is such a small data set, we're just going to go with the minimum, which is 5. And so we're going to take 33 minus the 12 and divide that by 5, and that gives us 4.2. Now, we don't want to use a weird number for the widths, and so we'll round that up to number 5. So that'll be 5 will be our width. Now, we also really don't want to start at the very first number that's in our table. So what we're going to do is, since that's an even number, we'll go down one even number. And so that means we're going to start at 10. And so what we do is we go, okay, well, if that starts at 10, we have a width of 5, we go up to 5 more. So we have 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. That'll be our upper limit. And then 15 will be the next one in line, then up to 19, and so on until we have all of the possible numbers covered. So 33 is our largest, so we only have to go up to 34. All right. After that, we need to find the frequencies. Now, if we have a small number like this, it's pretty easy, but even if we don't, we can use these different COUNTIF statements. So we're going to use COUNTIF, and we're going to select our data, and we're going to say if that data, which is original data, of course, is greater than or equal to 10, we're going to count that number. And then we're going to subtract off from that count the number that is greater than 14. So what we're doing is we're going to take from the number 10 anything greater than or equal to that, so basically everything in the table, and then we're going to subtract off of that everything greater than 14. So that means from 15 on up. Okay, and so that gives us just the numbers that are in the 10 to 14, and I use the dollar signs to keep my data set, or the data column here, constant. So if I want to copy to a different cell, it doesn't change it. And so I put $A, $2, then $A21, and do the same thing over here. And so then after that, you hit enter. Now, then the next one is, instead of greater than or equal to 10, we now are greater than or equal to 15, and here it's greater than 19. And we do all that all the way down until we get to our last class, and then we make sure we have the total number, which is 20, and so we sum that up. And so that gives us our frequency distribution table. Now, with that in mind, what we need to do now is, if we're going to make a histogram, we're going to use only the upper limits. That's going to be kind of called our bin. And so our upper limits is going to be these values over here, the 14, 19, 24, 29, 34. And so that's going to be our upper limits. Our frequency is just going to be these values right here. And now, if you have Mac, basically you're not going to be able to do this first way, where we do basically all we're going to do is actually it's the well, either way, you're not going to be able to just go insert over here and do a frequency or a histogram. You can't do that because the Macs don't have that. So because of that, what we have to do is basically you're just going to plot this data. And so we're just going to do a bar chart. And so, it's just going to be a column. I would just do, this one here, just a simple column. And then I insert that. Okay. Now, when you get this, that's not how a histogram looks. A histogram looks kind of the right widths, and we have the correct, all the stuff fits. So what we have to do now is we have to kind of go over here. We have to do the gap width. We have to go to 0. And so now we're starting to look more like histogram. And we want to make sure our series overlap is 0 too. We don't really want to overlap here. So we're going to set that to 0, or as close to 0 as I can get it. And so that then would be our histogram for this set of data. And that's what it looks like. All right. Now, another way is, so that's plotting just this. Another way you can do it, so there's really kind of three different ways. You can go to the data and then data analysis, and then you can do the histogram. Okay, so your input range, that's going to be the whole set of data. So you're going to go back to your original data. And whenever you're doing anything, always go back to the original data as far as things go. Now our bin range, that's just going to be, where did my data, here go. Bin range is just going to be basically our upper limits. Okay, so that was going to be our upper limits. And so then, let's see, so A20, okay, so that's right, then the R is right. So then output range, we can, kind of put it wherever. Let's say we put it here. And we also want the chart output, so that's going to be the actual output for the chart. And so we do that, and then it gives us kind of this frequency table of its own. And over here, it brings this nice histogram. And again, it's not plotted in quite the proper way because, again, it has this gap of 150 and we need it to be 0. Now it does do the series overlap at 0, which is good. And so now we have a histogram in that way. Now, when it does it with these bins, it always has this last row in the columns. You can delete that, and that gets rid of the more. And so then basically all you're plotting is this, which is the same as if you do it with the insert and you actually can do a histogram, or if you want to just plot this, the frequency distribution with the upper limits and doing it just with the column chart, or you can do it with the data analysis and do the histogram. So all the versions will give you basically the same thing. It'll give you a histogram no matter how you do it. You just have to do a little tweaking of it, making sure your widths are, or the gaps are 0, and then it doesn't have any overlap. So hopefully that'll help you if you have a Mac or even if you have a PC on how to do histograms.